Okay, this video is what makes a golden age for a culture, or why our golden age is so rare. When people think about the frequency of an event, they typically begin by thinking about a normal distribution. This is also called a bell curve or a Gaussian distribution. And IQ is the classic thing associated with the bell curve. So a normal IQ would be about 100. One standard deviation would be 15 IQ points. So two standard deviations would be 130. So anybody with an IQ of 130 would have be in the 98th percentile, so to speak. You know, around 135 or 140, you're talking about 99th percentile. You start getting up around here, you're 99.9 percentile. Anyways, that's for one skill. And in order to be, think about what it takes to be a great athlete. To be a varsity starter on, let's say, a high school basketball team, you got to be about 99 percentile in skill. To be college, 99.9%. To be in the pro, 99.9%. To be one of the all-time greats, 99.999 percentile. Okay? Well, anyways, that's what it takes to have skill in one thing. But a golden age means skill in a lot more than that. And I think this guy gave a good discussion of it right here. This is a guy named Oscar Osicki. He has a really nice channel about classical music, YouTube channel. He says, becoming a composer is not one skill, it is a tree of skills. You have to know a lot of different things about music and have a lot of different abilities. This is called tree of life of skills. So the point I'm going to make here is that having a golden age is not a bell curve, what we just referred to. It is what is called a Latka curve. So here's a Latka curve. And a Latka curve in this example is like publications for authors, let's say, of scientific publications. But it also pretty much goes for other things, publications of novels and other things. There's a lot of people who will write one novel or publish one scientific paper, or maybe who publish two. There's still a decent number, but it rapidly starts dropping off for people who will publish 3, 4, 5 or more. Okay, and then people who end up publishing a lot more than that, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, depending on journal articles or novels. You're going to publish a lot more journal articles than novels. But you get the point. It becomes more and more rare. And so what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of things that go into great creative achievement. It's not just intelligence. It's not just ability to draw. It's also the motivation, access to training. Okay, I'm going to show you some more of what's involved here. For example, the classic Renaissance or great golden cultural age would be the Italian Renaissance in the 1400s and 1500s. The big golden age before that would be the ancient Greeks during Periclean Athens, classical Athens. Let's say from about 450 BC to 400 BC. Okay, that would be like the golden age of ancient Greece. Okay, and you could extend it a little farther for some of the work of Plato and Aristotle, for example. But here is the great Pope Julius, and he is talking with Raphael, with the architect Bramante, with Michelangelo, for example, with future popes about the design of St. Peter's Basilica, okay, which Michelangelo and Bramante both played a major role in. But you need these good old guys who want it to happen, who've got the power, the clout, the money to support it, like Pope Julius. And here's Pope Julius, played by Rex Harrison, in the movie Agony and the Ecstasy about Michelangelo. There's Michelangelo, played by Charlton Heston. And of all the creative movies, the two all-time best are Amadeus. That's the best one for Mozart. I love that movie. It's my all-time favorite movie. And then Agony and the Ecstasy is the second best movie, all-time movie for creativity. But you're not going to have you're not going to have a Michelangelo unless you also have a city like Florence that loves art. You also have patrons like the Medicis that helped Michelangelo get trained when he's just a poor kid. And you also need people like Pope Julius, the patrons, with good ideas. Because an artist isn't going to produce great art just by knowing how to paint well. Here is Cosimo Medici. He sort of got the Italian Renaissance going. The Medicis were the bankers for the Vatican, and they used some of their money to support cultural achievements and to hire scholars like Pico della Mirandola, Marsilio Ficino. So you had these brilliant men that could advise people like the artists like Michelangelo and Raphael. This, by the way, is Michelangelo when he was a young guy with Lorenzo Medici, Lorenzo the Great, making a statue right here of a satyr, a faun, whatever you want to call it. but he had this opportunity to get training with the Medicis when he was young. Okay, you have to have enough leisure time. You have to have, whereby the farmers are good enough that not everybody needs to farm. You have to have enough wealth that people will support this. They've got time for it. Okay. Here's one of the all-time great statues, the Pietà by Michelangelo. He's only about 23 years of age. His mother had died when he was 7 years of age, and in many ways, this sort of represents Michelangelo on the lap of his mother, and it's the greatest sculpture ever made, Pietà. Okay, it's beautiful. And that's why she's so big relative to him. It's his own mother. Okay, here is Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. Okay, the birth of Aphrodite. And Zephyr, the west wind, blowing her clamshell to shore as she comes alive. She's covering her modesty there with her long hair. Okay, and one of the graces is putting a cloak around her. It's just magnificent. Okay. Paganism and Christianity, they go together. They've always gone together. The Roman Catholic Church coexisted with pagans for 500 years, from 30 AD to 530 AD. Here is the creation by Michelangelo on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Man is created in the image of God, therefore man too can be a creator. God created a rational universe. He's bringing Eve to Adam. The shape around them is like a brain. Here is the Sistine Chapel with the Last Judgment on the far wall. All the stuff we talked about by Michelangelo on the ceiling, and a lot of the paintings on the sidewall, also by artists from Florence. Okay, like Perugino, for example. Here, of course, is the great School of Athens, which you can see behind me as well here, and this is the high point. The high water mark of the High Renaissance, with the School of Athens painting showing Roman architecture in the background here, and then mostly Greek philosophers and scholars. There's Diogenes, Heraclitus. There is Plato pointing up to the sky at the perfect forms. There's Aristotle pointing down, the biologist. Let's be practical. There's Raphael, got himself into the painting. But what I'm trying to say is you have to have all these good artists and great artists in order to have the superstar artists as well. You have to have a culture that appreciates it, that pays for that, that's got the leisure time, the knowledge to make it all happen. And so the three greatest ages ever in the history of mankind for culture were the ancient Greeks in Athens, the Italian Renaissance, and everybody knows about this. Anybody who's educated knows that. But what a lot of people, even a lot of so-called educated people, don't realize is the greatest cultural time ever in the history of mankind was the 1800s in Europe. Okay, and you can look at it as, sometimes you can call it the Victorian Renaissance. Queen Victoria in England was Queen Victorian age from 1837 until 1901, so most of the 1800s. It's also been called in the later phase of the 1800s the Belle Epoque, the Beautiful Age, the Golden Age, the Gilded Age in America by some. And what you had is you still had Christianity. You had that transition around 1800 from neoclassicism primarily in Europe, the big Western European countries, to Romanticism, which was really looking back to chivalry and medieval Christianity. You had a highly literate public that appreciated all this. You had patrons. You had competitions between the big countries, between Germany and England and France and other European countries. Poland is up in there too. And Scotland's up in there too with England. Everybody wanted to try to achieve greatness, and they saw primarily as going back to neoclassicism, the ancient Greeks and Rome, and as going back to earlier Christianity was the way to do it, and that was correct. But that's why golden ages are so rare. And if you want to be, a top-notch, top-of-the-line creator yourself, that's like a Lotka curve as well. You have to have multiple skills. So what you should do is, while you're young, because it's a lot easier to start something when you're young, try to build all the relevant skills. Like if you want to be a great artist, you want to be a great writer, learn poetry, learn comedy, learn how to draw, learn rhetoric, learn debate, learn the different forms of oratory, learn how to write rap, learn all the different things you can to put it all together, and then have some baseline knowledge. Because the reason they can make these great paintings, Raphael was not a philosopher or historian, but he was advised by Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola, and other scholars from the Medicis and from Pope Julius that helped him, to guide him on how to paint the School of Athens. And they also helped guide Michelangelo, giving him advice So the painter can help then pick an important topic that's got uniform applicability, relevance to almost everyone. Because that's what a great painting is. It's not just great artistic skill. It's also a great topic told in a good way, like a story, in a memorable way, in a beautiful way, in a pictorially, realistically accurate way. All these things go together. So anyways, that's why golden ages are so rare. And yeah, they could happen again, but you need leadership, you need big money, you need the public, you need a lot of people have to be in on it and support it to make it happen. But I certainly wish it would happen again. There were some minor renaissances, like the Carolingian Renaissance with Charlemagne when he hired Alcuin to teach, but that was more like trying to revive a revival rather than a renaissance, I would say, of Catholic culture, Roman culture. There was a scholastic Gothic Renaissance, and that was a much bigger step up with, Albert the Great and Thomas Aquinas, the Dominicans, leading to the scholasticism style learning, the formation of all the universities, the early version of the modern scientific method, the building of the Gothic cathedrals, all this great stuff. So anyways, that's what makes a golden age, a golden culture. Let's pray that there'll be another one. We got a long way to go, but it would be nice if one happens.